And it's Mike from Woolly Bug.
And Darren from Piscator Flies.
Hey guys, this is Mike from Woolly Bug. Today, Darren will be showing you how to tie a copper john pattern with green wire. The copper john is a nymph pattern that was invented by Colorado fly fisherman John Barr. There are many variations of the pattern, but it is generally thought of as an attractor pattern or an abstract mayfly imitation. This is another one of those nymphs that lives in the Fly Fishing Hall of Fame. I use the copper john nymph year-round in streams where mayflies and stoneflies are present. I like to drift the pattern under an indicator as a dropper in a 2-nymph rig. At the end of this video, you can tap or click a link to watch me successfully fish this pattern on Laurel Hill Creek. Here are the materials you'll need to tie this nymph, and Darren will show you how.
Thanks, Mike. All right, let's get a fresh hook in the vise. Today we're going to be using a firehole stick, and this is the hook number 633 in a size 10. I've got a 1/8 inch gold bead on there already, and this is a brass bead. Of course, you can use tungsten if you want. We're going to add a little bit extra weight to this with a few wraps of 0.020 lead wire, or you can use a non-lead wire if you wish. And we're just going to snip that off with the back of our scissors there so we don't dull the tips. And we're just going to use our scissors or our fingers just to kind of tighten up those wraps of the lead. You just use your nail to pinch that down in there. And we're just going to push that right into the bead. And for thread, we're going to be using an olive 70D UTC. And one of the things we want to do with this thread is just kind of start it in behind the lead wraps, and then we're going to kind of use that to secure the lead right under the bead, kind of fill that void. And then we're going to keep in mind that we want to kind of build a taper into the lead just so that we have a smooth body. So the first thing we're going to need is a couple biots. I've got brown here, and we're just going to take 2. We're going to snip those off together. And then we're going to place those back to back. And you can tie these in a number of different ways. I like to put them on each side of the hook shank. And we're going to measure those off. Just going to eyeball it here, about a hook shank length. And we're going to add a couple loose wraps, and we're just going to kind of eyeball that, make sure that those biots are where we want them. If they're not quite there, you can manipulate them a little bit, twist them around before you get them really tightly in. And then we're going to go ahead and bind those down up just behind the bead. Snip off the tag ends here. Then we're going to clean those up a little bit, just kind of hide the tag ends. But the main thing we want to keep in mind here is just keeping that body smooth, and we're going to fill in that gap between the hook shank and the lead. Just have a nice taper, and that'll ensure that we've got a nice smooth body to wrap our wire onto. So next we're going to take a piece of wire. So in this case we're going to use the neon olive soft wire from Uni in a large size. My preference would be to use the brassy size. It's got a nice diameter. So we're just going to again use the back of our scissors to cut off a length. And I'm going to tie this in. I'm going to try and get it on the underside of the hook and then take that down into the tie-in point where our biots are. And then we'll make sure that's secure, and then we'll wrap our thread back up to the head. So we're going to start by twisting that on, and we just want to try and get those wraps as close as possible, touching if we can, and then we're just going to spiral that up. Touching turns about 3/4 or 2/3 of the way up the hook shank. And you can see how that body is coming out with a nice taper into the lead section there. So that looks about good. We'll tie off the wire. I'm going to use a few wraps. So if you use a brassy size, the diameter is a little bit finer and it's a little bit easier to make that transition. Helicoptered off our wire. And now we're going to tie in a piece of flash. I've just got a wide cut piece of flashabou or another type of tinsel. If you don't have a wide piece, you can definitely take 2 or 3 pieces like of flashabou and tie that in. So next we're going to use a piece of, this is like a scud back material or midge flex, and this is a 1/8 or 1/8 width, and we'll just use a few wraps just to make sure we get that tied into place. And we want to try and keep both of these materials tied together. We're going to wrap them in, and this is going to form our shell back on the fly. Next, we're going to take a couple pieces of peacock, and then of course I like to take this right off the eye, and we'll trim the butt ends off, and we'll tie the peacock in by the butts. So we'll just add a few wraps just to secure the butts, and then we'll grab them both together and we'll wrap forward. Oh, one broke, that's no problem. We'll finish wrapping the first one here. Secure that with a wrap or two of thread. And then we'll just wrap in the second one, and then we'll secure that. And we'll fold that back, make sure we got thread on both sides to lock it in place. So next we're going to take a hen hackle. This is a hen back. This one's got a nice bit of speckling on it. Makes some nice legs for this fly pattern. So we're going to strip off the barbs on the bottom, all the fluff there, just to get at the good stuff. So we're gonna got some damaged bits there, we'll just get rid of those, and we'll just pull out a small section, and then we'll grab the tips, pull those off. Just do this just so that the tips stay aligned, and we'll kind of roll them in our fingers. And we're going to measure that into about halfway into the body. And if it's your preference to tie them shorter or longer, by all means go ahead. We'll snip off the waist ends of those, and we'll turn that over and we'll do the same on the other side. One thing I was going to mention is the wire color on this. So the original was tied with a copper wire, but you can also use any number of different colored wires. So we've got the olive here. Chartreuse is a really great color. Red, black, or the original copper, or orange. All great choices. I'd suggest tying this up in a number of different colors and seeing what works best for you. So we tied in our second set of legs, and now we're going to pull over our midge flex, and we're going to take a couple wraps to secure that. And we're just going to tighten down that thread just to make sure that that gets secured well. And I like to, when I cut this off, I just leave a little bit of a tag just because it's a little bit elastic and I don't want it to pull out under those thread wraps. And then we'll pull over our flash material and we'll give that a couple wraps just to secure it in place. And again, I just usually leave a small tag on this just to make sure that it's locked in place. Although with this pattern, we're going to add a little bit of UV resin, so everything's going to be locked in place really well. So if it's a little bit looser, it's not going to make too much of a difference. As soon as we got that layer of UV resin, we're going to be good to go. So just going to add a whip finish here. And we'll trim off our thread. And then If you like, you can add a head cement to the fly at this stage and then come back and use either epoxy or UV resin. And in this case, I'm going to be using the Solarez Thin Hard formula. So we'll just put a dab on there and just let it soak in a little bit. And once we're happy with that, we'll go ahead and hit it with our UV light. In just a few seconds, just to let that resin set up. And then you're good to go. That's the finished Copper John in an olive green color. Enjoy. Hey Tires, thanks for checking out our video. Please take a minute and check out Mike's excellent on-the-water vlogs over at the Woolly Bug YouTube channel. I've got some links in the description that you can follow. If you enjoyed the video and want to show a bit of support for what we're doing here, why not give it a thumbs up? Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon to get updated on the latest fly patterns, books, and reviews. If you have any questions or comment, leave a message below. We make sure to answer each and every one. Until next time, this is Darren saying keep a hook in your vise. Cheers.